I got it. All right, calling the meeting to order. The governor has declared a state of emergency to exist in California as a result of a threat of COVID-19. While the governor recently issued executive orders in 0721, which lifted certain orders and associated restrictions, there are still public health directives in place. Executive order in 0821 also allows local legislative bodies to continue to hold meetings via conference calls while still meeting state transparency requirements. The public's health and well-being are the top priority of the city of Yuba City, and you are urged to take all appropriate health and safety precautions. This meeting is utilizing the Zoom application for this live broadcast. For this meeting, we will be using the questions and answers functionality of the tool in order to accommodate public comment. On your device, the question and answer section of the app is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For those that would like to comment during this meeting, please enter your comment into the question and answers portion of the app and be sure to state the item you will be commenting on. During public comment of each item, staff will read aloud the comments provided by the public for all to hear for that specific item. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Shaw.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kirchner.
Here.
Councilmember Boomgarden.
Here.
Councilmember Espandola.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
All right. Mr. Chaffin, will you please read our closed session items tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have one item in closed session this evening. This conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 5495, 6.9D1, name of case Gregory Gross versus City of Yuba City et al., Yuba City Superior Court Case Number CVCS 225016, and that's 000016. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public, Sierra?
No public comment.
All right, then we will adjourn to closed session. I'll try it again. We'll call this meeting to order tonight. I'm going to read a couple of things as always. The governor has declared a state of emergency to exist in California as a result of the threat of COVID-19. While the governor recently, about 2 years ago, issued executive order N0721, which lifted certain orders and associated restrictions, there are still public health directives in place. Executive order N0821 also allows legislative bodies to continue to hold meetings via conference calls while still meeting state transparency requirements. The public's health and well-being are the top priority of the city of Yuba City, and you are urged to take all appropriate health and safety precautions. This meeting is utilizing Zoom application for this live broadcast. For this meeting, we will be using the questions and answers functionality of this tool in order to accommodate public comment. On your device, the question and answer section of the app is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For those that would like to comment during this meeting, please enter your comment into the questions and answers portion of the app and be sure to state the item you will be commenting on. During the public comment of each item, staff will read aloud the comments provided by the public for all to hear for that specific item. Be timely with your questions, as once public hearing is closed or the item has been discussed by council and voted on, no more comments will be accepted for that item. Can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Shaw.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kirchner.
Here.
Councilmember Boomgarden.
Here.
Councilmember Espandola.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
All right, thank you. Tonight's invocation will be given by Cornerstone Church Pastor Jason, is it Poling?
Yep.
There you are, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Let's go ahead and bow before the Lord together. Oh God, we just come before you now, and we want to say thank you for being our God. Lord, we acknowledge very clearly that none of us are God. We know that. We know that. We know that we don't have the solutions to all the manifold issues that confront us here in Yuba City or across the world or in this country. And so we look to you. We don't know what to do most of the time, so our eyes are upon you alone. And we just want to say thank you for being in control. Thank you for being on your throne, even when things feel so unstable and confusing and scary. We are grateful that you are still on your throne. And so we just want to give you adoration and praise. We just want to say thank you for your grace. Many have experienced that just beautiful, amazing grace, knowing that we are sinners, that we are broken people in so many ways, more ways than we can even realize. And you have sent Christ to the cross to pay for those sins freely. Lord, you were so gracious that you would send your love to us in that way. You loved us so much that you would send Christ. And if we believe in him, we can have eternal life. This is a wonderful gift. And so we just want to just give you praise for that. Lord, we want to also just come before you in an act of humility together as a people here in Yuba City. We just want to confess where we've struggled individually with our brokennesses and our sins and our ways in which we haven't honored you. And we want to confess that corporately as a people, where we haven't really given you the due praise that you deserve. And we've tried to take matters into our own hands without your counsel from your word. So we just want to confess that to you. We thank you that you are faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. We give you praise for that. And now, Lord, I just want to give you thanksgiving for all the blessings. There's so many things that we can just thank you for. We're thankful for the good weather here recently. We're thankful for the opportunity that we could gather. We could communicate together our issues and concerns. We thank you for our city council and our leaders and our officers and everyone here that makes this community work. We just thank you that you've given us all these gifts of leaders and people and neighbors that care for one another and want to see this become a better city. So we're just thankful for that. Lord, we just want to ask that tonight you would guide the conversations, that you would give each person great wisdom and grace to communicate in a manner that is loving. Lord, that we would speak truth, but do it in a way that is kind and gentle and loving, because you love us and we are called to love one another. So I pray that you would bless this time tonight, bless this great city, and thank you for our leaders. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
And if you would remain standing, I would like to ask our youth commission to come down to the front, please. Don't they look awesome? Ladies and gentlemen, this is our youth commission for the city of Yuba City. And I asked them to come down front tonight because I would like them to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So would one of you guys please turn around and lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You can be seated. And thank you, Youth Commission. Mr. Chaffin, as our city attorney, would you please report out of closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
All righty, thank you. To the council, is there any agenda modifications, or are we ready and set with the agenda as is? Okay, so the agenda stands as it is. So tonight, we are going to go to our ceremonial presentations. And first one is the Yuba City Police Officer of the Year 2021 Proclamation. And I would like to invite our Homeless Liaison Officer, Mr. Troy Koski, to come forward. And Chief Baker, would you please join the council as well? Check, we are on, that is good. This is something pretty amazing and pretty awesome. And I tell you, when I found out about this myself, and I can probably speak on behalf of the entire council, you receiving the Police Officer of the Year award is so deserving. The hours, the heart, the things you do for this community, pretty incredible. So thank you for letting us honor you tonight. And we have a proclamation here I'd like to read and present to you. Congratulations on your selection as the 2021 Officer of the Year. Whereas Troy Koski began his career in law enforcement in 1990, he worked for the Sutter County Sheriff's Office, the Yuba County Sheriff's Office, the Marysville Police Department, and was hired as a police officer by the city of Yuba City on March 23, 2015. In 2020, Officer Koski became the first officer assigned as a homeless liaison officer for the Yuba City Police Department. Officer Koski has taken this role to heart, and over the last year has been a significant resource for the police department, the community, and business members. In 2021, Officer Koski received 140 reports just from the Yuba City 311 app, which included reports from illegal camping and vagrancy issues. This does not include the numerous calls reported through dispatch regarding homeless issues. Officer Koski has joined the efforts of other agencies within the city and county and works continuously to find solutions to the problem of homelessness in our community. Officer Koski does his job as a police officer with compassion and respect for those he is serving, and is always willing to help people improve their situation. Officer Troy Koski was recognized in 2021 as the Yuba City Police Department Police Officer of the Year for his selfless dedication to the citizens and community of Yuba City. Now therefore, let it be resolved that I, Dave Shaw, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council and citizens we serve, do hereby congratulate Police Officer Troy Koski on the occasion of his selection as the 2021 Yuba City Police Department Officer of the Year. Any of the council, I kind of spoke for us. Anybody would like to say a few words to Officer Koski? I went there first, he said no. How about again? You've been asked by twice.
Just thank you very much. This is a great honor.
Thank you again for all you do. Let's pose for a picture here.
Oh, I know.
We have a lot of these tonight. So next we have the Cookie Tree, 40 years in business. I'd like to invite Sue Smith, who's the owner of the Cookie Tree, and her son, Brett Smith, to come forward and join us. This is quite the honor, I think, for all of us to be up here and recognize you guys tonight, because for 40 years, you guys have been a pillar of this community. I know when I first came here in the Air Force a long time ago, probably 30 plus years ago, I heard about the Cookie Tree then. And so that's how, such an icon of this community you guys are. So thank you for letting us honor you tonight. And we look forward to the next 40 years, not 40 pounds, but 40 years. If we eat enough cookies, it will be 40 pounds. Whereas the City of Yuba City would like to celebrate and recognize Sue Smith, the owner of the Cookie Tree, for 40 years in business. On December 11th, 1981, the Cookie Tree was established and opened its doors on Plymouth Street. On the first day of business, they cleared $187. You've come a long way. A few years later, Sue bought the store, and the business continued to be very successful and moved from Plymouth Street to a different location another 2 times due to growth of the business. Today, the Cookie Tree has 22 employees, and the current managers, Julie and her sister, Christy, have worked there for many years along with their mom, Judy, who is the baker. Together combined, they have 80 years in the business. The Cookie Tree has become an icon in the community and is the perfect place to pick up that perfect gift. They also support many community events, along with countless donations to schools, charities, and other fundraising events. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Dave Shaw, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby applaud and congratulate Sue Smith, the owner of the Cookie Tree, on the 40-year anniversary of the sweet business, and look forward to many more dozens of cookies in the future.
words, but I'll just say a few. I thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, community. I love this. I've been in lots of wonderful cities. I've been in Rome, and I've been in Paris, and I've been all over the world. But I wouldn't want to have lived the last 2 years in any place but this community, because you guys supported us. We had our biggest year last year. You supported us through COVID, and you have blessed us in so many ways. We hope that we continue to bless you. Thank you so much.
For a minute, I was going to say, I know where to see cookies. All right, our next one this evening is the Red Cross, and I'd like to invite Daryl White, who is the Red Cross Disaster Services Program Manager, to come forward. You guys doing a lot of incredible work. Thank you for always being there in times of need worldwide, and especially here locally. I know that we've all seen Red Cross in action right here in our community. So we want to take this time tonight and recognize the Red Cross. Whereas in time of crisis, people in Yuba City come together to care for one another. This humanitarian spirit is part of the foundation of our community and is exemplified by American Red Cross volunteers and donors. Today, we honor the kindness and generosity of Red Cross volunteers here in Yuba City. They join the millions of people around the United States who volunteer, give blood, donate financially, or learn vital life-preserving skills through the Red Cross. During the wildfires in 2021, the contributions of the local Red Cross volunteers gave hope to the most vulnerable in their darkest hour. Their work to prevent and alleviate human suffering is vital to strengthening our community's resilience. We dedicate this month of March to all those who continue to advance the noble legacy of American Red Cross founder Clara Barton, who lived by her words, "You must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it." We ask others to join in this commitment to give back to our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Dave Shaw, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim March 2022 Red Cross Month and encourage the community to reach out and support its humanitarian mission. Would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you for this honor. We, Daryl and I are here just to thank everybody for being here tonight and for bestowing this upon us. March's Red Cross Month actually started in 1943, and it's been a yearly tradition since then. Franklin Roosevelt signed the first proclamation saying that we want everybody to rededicate themselves to the splendid aims and activities of the Red Cross. And in case you don't know, the Red Cross is 90% volunteers. Those are the same volunteers that were there during the fires last season, and unfortunately, we're going to be out there again this year. So we want to thank everybody who's been part of the Red Cross in their past, or anybody who's going to join the Red Cross and help us help you.
So the Red Cross runs on volunteers. 90% of the people plus that we have are volunteers, many from your local community. We can't do the work without the local community. We ask you to come forward and join the Red Cross if you feel like volunteering. It's a very simple process. You go to redcross.org and follow the promise to volunteer. We would love to have you, and thank you for the support from the city. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Find the right piece of paper. And now it's time for us to recognize the Martin Luther King March. And I'd like to invite Pastor Marcia Chambers, Pastor Daryl Chambers, Agnes Vaughn, and Ted and Anna Alexis. Did I get them all right? We'll just keep moving right on down. All right. First of all, thank you for being here tonight. You get to this chair up here and you have to start wearing glasses. So, but thank you for being here tonight. And as I said earlier, thank you for understanding that how I wasn't able to participate this year. We had an interesting conversation as I was flying back cross country, and I said I would love to be there, but that first step was going to be a doozy because I was at 38,000 feet in an airplane. So thank you for understanding, because that allowed me to be here tonight. So, but we want to honor you and the efforts that you guys do every year. And you guys have done the MLK walk for a lot of years. And it symbolizes and recognizes, what our country does when it comes together. And I really do appreciate the invitations and the things that you do, because COVID or not, you walked across even a year ago, and it was pretty amazing. So thank you. And with that, I'd like to present you guys with this tonight. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Yuba City Unity March. In recognition of Pastor Daryl and Marcia Chambers, Unity March coordinators. Whereas during January, America celebrates a national holiday in honor of the birthday of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The dream of Dr. Martin Luther King, his rich legacy and contributions to humankind to bring about equality, justice, love, and freedom to everyone. Since January 16th, 1999, our community recognizes this legacy with a Unity March, keeping the dream alive in the Yuba City area. For the past 5 years, Pastor Daryl and Marcia Chambers, the Emmanuel Family Worship Center family, have organized the MLK Unity March. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream lives on for all of us to realize that we cannot operate in a what is that? Thank you, microcosm. I'm going, okay, I've been doing numbers all day today, so I apologize. Of race and nationality, but to operate in dependence of each other to survive, to love each other as brothers and sisters, and not to think of others as inferior. Now, even when I stumble on words. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Dave Shaw, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of our entire City Council, encourage our citizens to reflect on the progress made in our country as a result of the work of Dr. King and dedicated individuals such as Pastor Daryl and Marcia Chambers, who strive to promote love, compassion, and unity within our communities. Would you like to say a few words?
I just want to say thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate this. Thank you so much and for coming out to support us as well during our marches, during our programs. And, we've been doing this for a long time in the community. And every year it has grown larger and larger. And even during the COVID situations, it has always, it's always nice to see the community come out to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and for all the hard work that he has done. And it is great that the community comes together to do this, because what he did for America and for the world was not just for the African American. It was for all of us. His dream includes every one of us, regardless of our color, our nationality, our creed, our size, whatever our gender. He was his actions is to bring unity for everyone, and that is why we do that every year, so that we do not forget his dream. And he said in one of his quotes that I'd rather stick with love because hate is too big a burden to carry. Amen. So that's what we want to instill in our community and for our young children to grow up and to recognize that someone was looking out for them and to know that we can be unified in love and equality.
Well, grace and peace, Yuba City. We want to thank everyone that supports the Unity March. And when you look at the march, you look around this room. This is what the march looks like. Very disappointing for just this, it's not really disappointing, but it's diversity that we be disappointed because more African Americans don't show up. That's a disappointment for me. But the joy of all the Hispanics and Latinos and Punjabis and East Indians and everybody else coming out, that's what Martin was wanting to see. Everybody coming together. And Yuba City has been doing that for us since 1999. And that's a long time. And we just want to thank you for your support. And we'll see you again next year with bigger and better things. Grace and peace. I can't do the meeting, right? Can't read.
All right. Thank you guys for all supporting us through those. That's honestly the fun part about being on the council, is getting to recognize some incredible people in our community. So thank you. We will continue on to agenda item 6. This is public communication and appearance of interested citizens. You're welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on items listed on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on items not listed on the agenda will be considered at this time. Comments on controversial items may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of a group. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to speak. Written requests received at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be allotted 5 minutes to comment. And Wakefield, do we have comments tonight?
We did receive a written request to speak from John Buckland. Unfortunately, he was not able to attend and did send an email in his stead. So he asked that I read that on his behalf. This email came through today, Tuesday, March 1st, 2022 at 2:21 p.m. I respectfully request to vacate the 5-minute time previously allotted for the city council meeting tonight. As time allows, I will seek more definitive sources of information, absent political spin, to determine the financial impact the citizens of this city have endured the past 3+ years at the hand of the current elected officials. This statement may and should be presented in the time allotted for my in-person comments. John Buckland.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the public? Any other comments from the public? Do we have anything else online?
No public comment.
Thank you. Then we will move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is all matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the council votes on the motion unless members of the city council, staff, or public request items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Would anyone from the public like to speak on the items on the consent calendar? Anyone wish to speak from the public on the consent items? Do we have any comments online?
No public comment.
Okay, then I will bring it back to the council for questions or action.
Through the mayor.
Oh.
I
Councilwoman Espandola?
move to approve the consent calendar items 7 through 13.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Espandola.
Second.
I have a second by the vice mayor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those of no say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Consent calendar is approved. We will move on to business items. First one is item 14, which is Blue Zones project. Tonight we have Steve Krager for the Blue Zones. He's our executive director and he's here to present tonight. Mr. Krager, you have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here this evening. For the record, I did ask to be on this agenda because I was told there'd be cookie tree cookies. Obviously, I misunderstood something, but I'm still happy to be here nonetheless. I am trying, but I will admit that of all the things, a cookie tree cookie is a good cookie. So Blue Zones Project, Yuba City, some of you are familiar with it. What I'd like to do is provide you with a brief overview, not take too much of your time, but to give you enough of the substance of it. So Blue Zones is brought to this community by Adventist. That's notable. You can see that Adventist Health is up there. Blue Zones project is separate and apart from Adventist. Adventist is the funding source. In a lot of other communities, this is funded by private entities throughout the Midwest. Also health, there's a strong health and well-being side to Blue Zones, but that sponsoring of Adventist is important to note. So what is Blue Zones? This gentleman in the lower right-hand corner of the screen goes by the name of Dan Buettner. 20 years ago, in coordination with National Geographic, he is a researcher. He went out and simply wanted to find out why people are living so long in certain parts of the world. He found 5 areas across the world. They're shown before you on this screen where people live long, healthy lives. And what's notable about this is that people are living they're 3 times more likely to live beyond 100. So those are termed centenarians. And the term Blue Zones, which was intriguing to me, is where did that come from? It was on the island of Sardinia. And what they were doing is they were putting blue dots, which just happened to be a blue pen, and they were marking where all the centenarians were. And they found that there were these concentrations of centenarians, and they simply called them Blue Zones. And you can see that there are 4 other places across the world. One of them is notably in California, the community of Loma Linda. This gentleman, Dan Buettner, wrote up an article in National Geographic called The Secrets of Living Longer. It's in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. Obviously, it caught on because there were a number of publications that followed. So this notion of the Blue Zones Project developed in about 2010 when they decided, let's take this Blue Zones concept from this 2005 publication that is still the third best-selling National Geographic magazine of all time. And let's turn it into a Blue Zones project. And let's see if we can't bring it to communities in North America and try to figure out a way to help people live longer, healthier lives. And this is one of the attractions I had to Blue Zones, is it's community driven. It's no one coming in and telling a community, well, this is what you have to do. It's a matter of identifying 9 different areas, and these are them listed before you. And these are the areas that Dan Buettner identified that were common among these 5 places across the world where people were living long, healthy lives. So as a good researcher, he distilled it down to these 9 elements. And they're really basic when you look at them. I think of them, you can see them written out there. I think of them in 4 major areas. One, the first 2 come to us naturally when we think about health. It's how much we're moving our bodies and what we're putting into our bodies. But more and beyond that, it has to do with our social connections. Do we feel like we belong to a community? Or is this a place where we belong? And obviously from the presentations this evening, the proclamations that the mayor and council gave, people feel like they belong in this community, that this is the right place. So I would argue that that is a strength of our community as a social infrastructure. And then also there's the sense of purpose. The gentleman from the Red Cross talked about volunteering. That people who volunteer have a higher sense of purpose in life, rather than sitting home and just simply watching TV. So those are the 4 areas, obviously broken down into more areas beyond that. By the way, these people are not, in these 5 areas, are not vegetarians. They do have a plant slant, and I will say that a lot of that just comes from simple economics. We live in a wonderfully wealthy country where we can afford to eat meat, so we do more so. And these are places where people eat meat sparingly because it's just a matter of financial ability. And so it's interesting to know that we have this abundance of wealth, but in certain ways it can affect us negatively as well. So where that translates into our job as a Blue Zones project team, and I need to note now, because I didn't at the outset, Amanda Stoltz is in the audience with me, and Amanda is our public policy lead. So she is the person who will be working with all of our government entities. That would be Yuba City, Marysville, Yuba County, and Sutter County. That's our core starting area on how we look at the policies that drive those 9 areas and how can we possibly make changes elected by the community to improve our health and wellness. So these are the 3 areas that we focus upon. I mentioned the people part of it, and that's us in those 9 areas. They're the places, which is our built environment. If someone wants to walk, is it easy for them to walk? Are there sidewalks? If they want to ride a bike, is it easy for them to ride a bike? I know Councilman Kirchner is a cyclist, so cyclists can figure out the right places to ride their bikes to be safe. But can the rest of the community figure that out as well? And so that's something that we look at in that environment. And then finally, the policy side of it, which is your realm as a governing body. This is really, I'm not going to go through this. I just ask that you focus on the blue band in the middle. This is the timeline for our Blue Zones project. It's a 5-year project. There is a team of 6 of us, so that's a lot. And so there's a lot of effort that goes into this. We are in the foundation period. That's the second blue arrow section. And what we're doing now is we are doing community outreach. So we're going to be asking this evening that your city council consider appointing a member of your council, or if you prefer a member of your staff, to serve on a steering committee that is made up of a cross-section of people in the community that represent health and schools and business community, a lot of the different areas, faith-based, civic folks as well. And so we're going to be meeting with them and talking about their perspectives. We're going to be having community meetings where we gather community input as well. And also we have something called the Real Age Test that has been out there that I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a moment. And that's where we're getting everyone's collective input on their own personal health. And I've been happy to hear people share with me what their real age is as a result of taking that test. This summer, we adopt a blueprint, which is simply an action plan. Once again, it's the community deciding of those 9 areas, where do we want to put emphasis? And then we work with the community on how to change businesses, how to change corporate structures and to encourage wellness. And we're here as a resource. This goes into a little bit more about how we measure well-being. So it's really important for Blue Zones to have tools for measurement metrics, and I like this because I've seen so many initiatives come to a community, and after so many years they say, we've been successful, and then all of a sudden they disappear. And everyone's looking around thinking nothing changed. And so we will measure our success on an annual basis, and frankly, if we're not being successful, then we'll have to figure out how to change our approach and take a different approach to improving well-being in our community. The top half of this circle on the right are all the facets of the real age test, which are feedback from community members on how they're doing individually. The bottom half are the social determinants of health, which anyone in healthcare is familiar with, which frankly, we don't have immediate control over. This is data that we get from data sources across the federal level, a national level, that tell us, economic security, access to health care, food access, et cetera. But so we take all these factors, put them together, figure out a baseline, and then we will measure annually our progress on that baseline. I didn't include a slide here on the real age test, but if you're interested, I know that 78 employees from the city of Yuba City took the real age test. And so maybe a little over a quarter of your population took it. And I will confess that I talked to a few tonight on my way in who got their results and hopefully got some productive feedback. Just a quick little notion. So it has your, quote, real age based on 76 questions that you answer. You don't have to answer them all if you don't want to, but it's more accurate if you answer them. And it gives you a quantitative number. But more helpful to me is it gives you qualitative feedback. And so it tells you what you're doing well and what you can improve upon. So I'll just tell you, me as a cyclist, I go out and ride long rides three times a week. But I came to find, well, you got to be moving your body more than 3 times a week. So it's a matter of me trying to get out on those other days and just walk for half an hour. So it's the little things like that. So if there's a link on our Blue Zones website, Blue Zones Project Yuba Center, to that, if anyone's interested, or you can see me and I'll give you a business card. So what is our ask of the City Council tonight? It is for a member you consider appointing a member to the steering committee. It is a commitment of about an hour to a month. And we value, obviously, yourselves as elected officials because you represent not only your own personal interests, but the interests of the entire community. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and I hope that I kept that short enough, Mayor, to your liking, sir.
All good, sir. Is there any questions from the council? Any questions from the council? Okay, any questions from the public? Any from the public? How about online?
No public comment.
Okay. Mr. Kreger, thanks for being here tonight. I will go ahead and go to who I've bring forth to the council to be our member representing the city on the steering committee. And the email you came over said, it could be an elected, it could be staff, but it could also be someone that's very engaged. And looking at that and making sure that everyone is represented in our city, I could only think of one person that came to mind that does a fabulous job already serving on our senior commission and could turn around and bring another perspective to the blue zones of how, we can make sure that our seniors are with us for a lot longer. And so I bring forward tonight for entertainment to this council, Mr. Tony Curlin, to be our appointee and representative on this. Mr. Curlin, would you like to say any words or anything?
Nothing to add. I'd be honored to work with Steve and the group. I've taken the test and it's interesting. But I actually came back lower by 3.5 years, so.
Awesome.
That was a good thing.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for your willingness to serve as well. You serve this city in many capacities, and I just want to say thank you. So I bring it back to the council for action.
Through the mayor, I just would ask that, Tony, I think you're a fantastic person to represent us, and I would love to, I know because you're in a very tight schedule for 5 years, can go fast, as you know. Just kind of want to know the progress of the work and how we built in some time for you to come in and just bring us up to date on how things are going and what you need from us, in particular as we're working. What I appreciate about you, Tony, the most is that you're so good about giving it exactly how it needs to be said. No sugarcoating on it, so I certainly appreciate that. So if you can come back and report and let us know how things are going and what you need from us.
Anytime.
Okay.
Sir,
Did you want a motion?
I'm looking for action from the council.
Okay, well, I'm losing my voice. I guess I better take the real age test. Or have another cookie or something, I'm not sure. Through the mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt a resolution affirming our support for the Blue Zones project and appointing a representative, in this case, Mr. Tony Curlin, who I agree is an excellent choice to serve on the Blue Zones project Yuba City Steering Committee.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a first by Councilmember Baumgarten, a second by Councilwoman Espandola. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Kreger. Thank you, Mr. Curlin. We look forward to reports back. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 15, Bridge Street Widening, Gray Avenue to Cooper Avenue project. It's the award for construction and construction management. And tonight we have our senior engineer, Kevin Bradford.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. It's great to see each of you in person this evening. It's been a little while since I've stood here before you to present an item in person. It's definitely pre-COVID, so please bear with me, especially following Mr. Kreger. No offense, Steve, but at least it wasn't Diana. Okay, so item 15 before you tonight is the long-awaited Bridge Street widening project from Gray Avenue to Cooper Avenue. This is a rather lengthy item with a lot of recommendations, so I'll try to get through it as quickly as possible. We're probably looking about 15 minutes worth of slides unless you want to rein me in at some point. Okay.
Mr. Bradford, before you start, if the council does have questions, would you rather them wait until the end or in the middle? What is your pleasure?
No preference. Council's pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the project involves widening Bridge Street from 2 lanes to 4 lanes from Gray Avenue to Cooper Avenue. This is the last segment to be widened between Highway 99 in Yuba City and Highway 70 over in Marysville. The layout on the screen is super hard to read, and I apologize for that. But the design is very similar to the section of Bridge Street between Cooper and Plumas. So if you can visualize that, that was completed a few years ago. Specifically, we'll have 2 11-foot wide travel lanes in each direction, a landscape median with the double mast arm street lights in the middle of the median. And let's see, what else do we have? So again, that's similar to the Cooper to Plumas section, right? And then in response to the presentation that we received from the Civilis Consulting recommending in summer of 2020, I believe, that we provide as much of a residential feel as we possibly can in this segment. We've basically provided on-street parking on both sides of the street throughout the entire project limits, except at the transitions to Gray and Cooper Avenue, where we just don't have the space to do so. We have bike lanes in each direction. We have 6-foot sidewalks and 4.5-foot wide landscape park strips on each side of the street. And in those park strips, we'll actually have some single head street lights at each of the cross streets. So we're hoping that that will provide a little bit more of a residential feel. We also have a new concrete block wall that will replace the wood fence in the back lots on the north side of the street. We also need to replace the water main throughout the entire project limits. That was identified as a medium high risk facility for replacement in the water master plan that was recently completed. And then we also need to replace a small segment of sewer that was just outside the limits of the downtown sewer replacement project we completed a few years ago. So, any questions on details of the project? Okay, let's get into the bidding then. Okay, so council approved the plans and specs on December 21st, and the following day we advertised for bids. We sent the notices out to the local contractor exchanges as per the public contract code. And then on February 1st, we received 4 bids, and they're shown on this table right here. Knife River Construction was the low, responsible, and responsive bidder. Knife River is familiar with working in Yuba City. They were actually the contractor who completed the segment between Cooper and Plumas most recently, but they also have done other work for us throughout the years. So looking at the bids, the first thing that jumps out very clearly is that it came in significantly higher than the engineer's estimate, approximately 25%. Staff, through looking at the details of the bid and talking with contractors, basically narrowed this down to a few key things. Number one, this is not a project that's easy to build, since we can't just close the road to traffic and let the contractor do its thing. We basically have to maintain the high volumes of traffic that are on Bridge Street and do it in a staged construction where we'll basically build the north half of the roadway first while the traffic is shifted to the south half. And then once the north side is finished, we'll put traffic on the north side and then construct the south half. And during that second stage, we're going to have to deal with maintaining access to all the residences that are on the south side of the street. There's also a substantial amount of underground work on this project, and that always has a set of unknowns that we just can't forecast right now. So, whether it be existing utility conflicts, unsuitable materials, that sort of thing. And then finally, material prices for pretty much everything across the board have just increased dramatically. We're talking about traffic signals, street lights, piping, the block walls, even the asphalt. But on the positive side, what we noticed is that the bids were all well grouped together. They were pretty tight bids, especially between the bottom 2 bidders. And honestly, it would be difficult really to reduce this bid result significantly without kind of drastically eliminating some of the design enhancements that we're talking about, trying to add to this with the streetlights and landscaping and such. And then another factor to take into consideration is that the CTC funding requirements require that we award this project. I have in here May 2022. Technically it's June, but that's kind of the internal deadline that I've set for us to award the project. Otherwise we forfeit the grant award. And as an aside, we looked into whether or not this grant funding could be increased, and unfortunately the CTC has strict requirements that they do not participate in any cost increases. I did want to point out too that we did have a bid protest from All American Construction, who was the second low bidder on the project. That bid protest asserts that Knife River Construction failed to list a subcontractor. Per the public contract code, all subcontractors performing work in excess of 0.5% of the overall bid amount, so in this case about $40,000, must be listed in the bid proposal. Knife River provided a response documenting that their subcontractor in question was not performing work in excess of that amount, and so was therefore not required to be listed. Staff did forward that response and our determination that the protest was not valid to All American Construction, and we have not received a response. So in conjunction with the City Attorney's Office, staff recommends that council reject the bid protest and then award the contract to Knife River. Okay, so that's the bidding, the construction contract, and now we've got a few professional services agreement for contract administration that we need to tackle. So a project of this magnitude requires pretty significant construction management and inspection to oversee the construction, to make sure that city, state, and federal requirements are met, and then to also represent the city in possible construction claims that may be a result of the work. And so basically we will need 2 full-time folks out there assigned to the project, and we have one inspector in the city at this time to handle the public works side of things. Our inspector, Jimmy Yakovitz, does a great job handling all of these private developments that are ongoing right now, occasional CIP projects, and then over literally hundreds of encroachment permits per year. But even if all that went away and he could just focus exclusively on this project, it still wouldn't be enough. So staff issued an RFP, a request for proposals from construction management firms, and the Knight CM Group was unanimously selected as the top-ranked consultant by a team of engineering staff and even the design consultant for the project, MHM. Knight CM Group is actually staffed by several members of the 5th Street Bridge replacement team. They did an incredible job in their proposal, identifying project challenges specific to this widening project, and then also advising us on how they would address those actual challenges, which was pretty unique. And their approach on the bridge project, which won them that job as well. So we can vouch directly for their performance on our own city projects. All their costs are reasonable, consistent with state requirements, and cost competitive. Caltrans is in the process of reviewing that cost proposal and other related contract documents that we need to execute, and will issue a conformance letter. So staff is requesting at this time that council approve the professional services agreement subject to the receipt of that Caltrans conformance letter in order to expedite pre-construction activities on the job. Okay, and then while city staff is going to provide oversight for the project, we also recommend contracting with the city's approved labor compliance consultant. That's the Solus Group. They'll be responsible for checking certified payrolls and making sure that all labor compliance issues are resolved if there are any on the project. And then additionally, our design engineer, MHM out of Marysville, will need to respond to requests for information from the contractor and our CM team during construction. So we're asking for an amendment to their contract to provide those services. So schedule. Project construction is expected to begin in April, pending execution of contracts, bonds, and insurance with Knife River. We expect that the contract will be completed the contract will extend through the end of 2022 for sure, more likely January 2023. That's weather permitting, and it's also material availability permitting. We also have some coordination with PG&E on the Bridge Street Rule 20A project. That's a separate but parallel project to place the overhead utility lines underground. And so we're trying to get enough information for what that's going to look like so that we can basically put in the necessary conduits, et cetera, so that we don't have to tear up pavement that we just freshly put down. So that could also cause some delays in wrapping up the street widening project. Okay, so on to fiscal impacts, and I apologize for the sticker shock here. The total estimated construction cost for the project is about $10.2 million. We're asking for a 15% contingency due to the extensive underground work that we talked about, traffic handling concerns that may arise while we're trying to maintain traffic through this corridor, and then also the potential coordination with PG&E and those underground conduits that we may need to install. The CM construction management item consists of about $814,000 for the Knight CM Group, about $29,000 for the Solus Group, $59,000 for MHM, and then $80,000 for staff time. That 12% CM percentage is within Caltrans' acceptable range. The project will be funded through the Bridge Street Widening CIP account. Currently, that account has a balance of about $5.4 million, so we're asking for some supplemental appropriations tonight and also some budget transfers. We are fortunate enough to have the $2.81 million in local partnership program grant funding from the California Transportation Commission that we talked about. Again, that amount cannot be increased due to the higher than expected project costs. Let's see, we also have the 2.63 million in development impact fee funds. Those are actually already programmed in the CIP account through prior council budget approvals. There's about 3.7 million in DIF funding for roads at this time, but staff is recommending that we retain that for future road widening extensions when that time comes. SACOG is holding right now a little over 1.7 million in TDA funds, and this is a perfect project to use those on. Those are due to the city, and they're just waiting for us to tell them a project we want to spend it on, and so might as well use those. And then the balance of the street-related funding, that 2.3 million roughly, would come out of our SB1 CIP account. That would leave a balance of about 1.5 million in that SB1 CIP account that we could probably apply to the Walton Avenue project. And then the sewer and water main replacement dollar amounts are shown there as well. Okay, so alternatives, you could not award the contract and reject all bids, remembering that state grant funding requirement is that we award the contract by May or June of 2022, soon. We could modify the scope of work to delete landscaping or other aesthetic items if desired. That won't really have an appreciable impact. I mean, we might be talking 500,000. You could probably get close to $1 million if you really dug deep, but I don't know if council feels that's worthwhile. And then on the funding side, you could also, instead of on the sewer and water, instead of using sewer and water funds, you could use the ARPA money to dedicate to those and save the sewer and water funds for other uses. Okay, so for recommendations, we recommend that council adopt a resolution which takes the following actions shown in the staff report. I'm not going to read those verbatim, but just to summarize them, I've got them on these next slides. This recommendation A is to reject the bid protest and award a construction contract. B is to award a professional services agreement to the Knight CM Group, subject to Caltrans's approval. I apologize for the bullets instead of letters on these next few slides, but so C and D are the contracts with the Solus Group and MHM, and E and F are supplemental appropriations for the TDA funds to be allocated to the account, and then also to transfer the SB1 funds. Recommendations G and H are to allocate the water and wastewater funds to the CIP account. So with that, I will turn it over to council for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Before we bring it to council for questions, Mr. Chaffin, just a quick question for you. With this many items under the resolutions, is there any need to break these apart, or can the council act on all of them in one motion if they so desire?
One motion, and it can be just a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
All righty, thank you. So to the council for questions. Any questions from the council?
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
First of all, great job, Kevin, on the presentation. I did have a question about, you mentioned along this corridor that the construction would begin on the north side. At what point in this process, time-wise, do you see this becoming, when does it start interrupting traffic flow?
Well, so the plan is to basically have one lane of traffic and a left turn lane continuous throughout the entire course of the project. So it would really be no different than it is today, with the exception that certain left turn movements, like if you were heading eastbound, for instance, you wouldn't necessarily be able to turn left across the construction work onto, say, Brown or Fippins Avenue. Or vice versa, you couldn't come off of those streets and into Bridge Street. So
this also coincides with Marysville starting their work, correct?
That is correct. I reached out to the Marysville project manager on that one, and they anticipate that barring any unforeseen delays, that project should be wrapped up by July 4th, approximately. There's probably some material delivery issues that they may have to pause their project and wrap it up at a later date, but in terms of actual traffic inconveniences, it'd be through July. We also feel like these two projects are separated far enough apart with us maintaining a similar traffic pattern that we have today, that there shouldn't be a whole lot of influence of our project on theirs or vice versa.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
If I may, sir?
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, Kevin, when we talk about the option to use ARPA funds rather than water, wastewater, I know we have a lot of projects. Water and wastewater is a big drain, no pun intended, on funds, right? A never-ending stream of projects that we need, right? So if ARPA qualifies, why, I mean, is there a reason why you maybe tell me that we haven't gone right to ARPA to begin with, rather than instead of keep water, wastewater for the other stuff that's inevitably coming?
See Diana queuing this one up.
Okay.
If you recall, when Spencer Morrison did the funding workshop related to, one of the items was the ARPA money, and there was a long list of projects to be considered for utilization of ARPA funds. And so knowing that that need exceeds the dollar amount, plus council hasn't determined what to do with the remaining funds that are available as part of this fiscal year. If I recall correctly, that's about $1.5 million. And then with next year's allocation, it's just over $7.5 million. And so my recollection is we have about $9 million that hasn't been allocated, and there's just a lot of competing interests for those funds. And so we put this as an alternative if council wanted to consider it, but also recognizing that there's still a lot of projects that need to be considered, and there's a lot of need. And not to say that you couldn't come after the fact and decide to use ARPA funds for this project instead of the designated water and wastewater, and then we could work with finance to just make that transfer.
Bottom line, we have more projects than money, no matter where you pull it.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. No other questions over here?
No.
Okay, all right. Kevin, first of all, thank you. You guys, you did a tremendous job on the bridge, and it's great over there. The work's been done, so I'm looking really forward to this project getting underway, and very comfortable with you being at the helm there, because you did a great job before. So just want to say thanks. Is there any comments or questions from the public? Any comments or questions from the public? How about online?
No public comment.
Okay, then I will bring it back to the council for action.
Motion to approve?
Is that all items, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilwoman Espandola. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item 16, SB 1383 ordinance updates, second reading. We have Mr. Ben Moody, who's Public Works and Development Services Director. Mr. Moody.
We got it fixed, right? It barely fits in there.
Did we have to buy you new business cards?
There's quite a debate on how to put it out. Is Benjamin, Ben, PW, DS? There's been a lot of talk, but I think this is where we've landed.
Thank you, sir. You have the floor.
Okay, so good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. So the item before you tonight is the second part in a two-part process to consider changes to the city's municipal code to comply with SB 1383, short-lived Climate Pollutant Reduction Act of 2016. So the item was introduced at the previous council meeting and is before you tonight for consider of adoption. And so with the implementation, as of January 1st, 2024, local entities are required through this 1383 to comply and enforce this organic waste law, basically, that's going in. And so, and then with that, the city's been working with the RWA, and with the region to have a united front on the implementation. So I'll go through it quickly with it being previously talked. It adds specific language regarding the Cal Green Code, specifically defines the organic waste. It adds official language regarding MWELO, the Model Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance. Both of those items were in the code where it was referenced in other areas, but we specifically called it out. And then the real meat of it is where we've added the 6-3 regarding new definitions, guidance regarding the organic waste, and inspection and enforcement mechanisms. And so basically tonight, it's for council's consideration and adoption. And then with that, there'd be next steps where the city would work with Recology and the RWA is in modifying our contract with Recology and then working with RWMA to coordinate how the inspection and enforcements are going to be going forward. So with that, I'd like to recommend the city adopt an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City, adding Section 7-10.03 of Chapter 10 of Title 7, adding Chapter 18, Model Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance of Title 7, amending Chapter 3, Mandatory Refuge Collection Services of Title 6, and amending Section 6-403 of Chapter 4 of Title 6 of the Yuba City Municipal Code to comply with Senate Bill 1383 by title only and waive the second reading. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All righty, thank you. Any questions from the council? Hearing none, any questions from the public? Hearing none, is there any online?
No public comment.
All right, bring it back to council for action.
I'm sorry, okay. City Attorney, would I have to read the whole? Yes, I thought so. Okay, so I move to adopt an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City, adding sections 7-1003, Chapter 10 of the Title 7, adding Chapter 18, Model Water Efficiency Landscaping Ordinance of Title 7, amending Chapter 3, Mandatory Refuse Collection Services of Title 6, and amending Section 6-4.03 of the Chapter of Title 6 of the City of Yuba City Municipal Code to comply with Senate Bill 1383 by title only and waive the second reading.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Espandola and a second by Councilmember Boongarden. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. And we'll go to agenda item 17, 2021 through 2029 City of Yuba City General Plan Housing Element. Mr. Moody, you again have the floor.
Okay, so the item before you, you've seen back in November of 2021, September of 2021, and December actually. And so really what happened is we're required by the state to update our housing element. It's an element of the general plan every so often on an 8-year cycle, and that could change depending on how well you do it or where the state views your status. And so we adopted that within that time frame, and then it needs to be certified by the state. And so we're not the only agency, but unfortunately, when it goes back to get certified, we thought we've got the kinks worked out, but they had a few comments that they wanted to add to that. And so there was some negotiations, I would say, that occurred, regarding really some definitions, really to set some goals that I thought were quantifiable, that were realistic. And so there was a little bit of back and forth on what the city could live with and what the state accepted. And so what we have tonight is really bringing this amended, revised housing element back to the city council that has, the state HCD hasn't, they can't confirm it at this point, but we're comfortable that this will be the end of the back and forth on this process. So really, I could get into the weeds on the reason for the housing element and everything it encompasses. I could definitely go into that detail if there's any interest. But really what the difference is from the previous action is there's minor wording revisions, quantifiable goals for each program, and additional collaboration with other organizations on the housing elements that were added into it. The environmental, there was an addendum that was processed and noticed for this revised housing element, and it's been done in accordance with all CEQA requirements. And so with that, my recommendation tonight is to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Yuba City adopting the revised 2129 City of Yuba City General Plan housing element.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Before we open a public hearing, is there any questions from the council?
Through the mayor, Ben, I know you have been working really hard on this particular housing plan for a while, but the EIR, yeah, is the section that they were most concerned about, that you had to make some changes to meet some of the state level requirements. Is that pretty much
you know, it's really,
negotiated? Or was it, because I mean, they've made some exceptions with some of those rules, in particular with the demand for need for affordable housing.
yeah, I would say really, we were working with the consultant, we were working back and forth. There was new criteria, a lot of new state laws that had to be updated and implemented in our new housing element that we have. But a lot of this last back and forth was just really defining maybe some of these equity standards, and like they're calling for a lot of programs and a lot of, it's not just creating places for zoning or creating places for affordable housing. It's really now that they're looking at this programs and effort that they want to see as to what the city is going to be accountable to with the annual report as to what are we doing as far as our zoning changes. You know, we're not changing everything from multifamily to single family. They want to make sure we're meeting the RENA needs. Also, there's just a lot between some programs that call for keeping your housing programs going that make sure that houses don't fall into disrepair, and then you have homelessness associated with that. And so, you know, there's effort from staff. I would say that it was really important to me because a lot of times they use these real broad subjective terms that I didn't want to be accountable to. And so it was really, hey, no, we want to lay this out and we want it to be a realistic term so then I could do the reporting on it. That I'm not, 3 years from now, I still want to be here and I want to make sure I get answer for that. And so that's really what some of the back and forth was. And the city attorney was definitely involved with this and helped kind of shepherd us through some of the end game with this. And Shannon, if you have anything to add, please.
It makes sense with, you know, the blue zone discussion and now Tony, you know, representing us. This is one of those policy documents that would be really important to have a further discussion as you represent us, Tony, to, because housing is a big need, a big issue, and it's this plan is required for us to complete, and I think you've done a great job with the consultant, to say the least, but thank you so much.
Any other questions from the council? Yes, sir.
Ben, maybe or maybe not, but I'm just curious to know, have you had any conversation with these folks as far as requirements go regarding consideration for equity concerns?
You know, I probably could dig through the document, but there's definitely specific language regarding equity and also, I'm not going to term it racial, you know, review. You know, basically they want to know why if there's some segregation occurring, but there's at the same time we want to be careful, you know, in our attempt. You know, Shannon, you probably better explain this. In our attempt to meet these programs regarding segregation and equity, that we're not breaking any other laws at the same time, and we're within the capacity of the city of what we can do. And so there's definitely some thought that's gone into that and how we set these goals. But that has been a big theme through this housing element, is homelessness, equity, and cultural diversity.
Okay, yeah, so when you've gone through this and put things together, you've had that on your mind regardless,
yep.
Correct? Okay. Because it is really a big deal, not only just racial, but economic, and then, of course, the senior populations, and make sure folks are not isolated, even on accident, and provide alternative forms of transportation and access to different things of the community. So I appreciate the effort into that, because it's not only is it a good thing, but it's gonna be a requirement, so we can look and get in front of it whenever possible. Yuba City, I don't think, is nearly as challenged in that area as some communities are, However, the fact that I'm comforted in knowing that we have our eye on it as we move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely the world we live in, and it's definitely on our minds from how the funding is coming through for various, to have a better community, and also that is where a huge focus is on the state and the federal funding that is coming through the state.
Any other questions from the council?
No, I just want to thank Councilmember Harris for those comments and the input on that. It really is valuable, so thank you so much.
Okay. Mr. Moody, thank you. Echo the sentiments of both of my colleagues. The one thing that's great about Yuba City is our community is really diverse. And as where Councilmember Harris was talking about, we're not as challenged as others. We still have to keep our eye on it, and but we have actually a good, diverse community. We need all housing, and we need to supply housing for seniors, low income, high income. We need all housing, and thank you for all your hard work. So with that, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone that'd like to speak under the public hearing? Anyone that'd like to speak under the public hearing concerning the City of Yuba City General Plan Housing Element? Okay, any comments online?
No public comment.
Okay, then I will close the public hearing, and I will bring it back to council for action.
Through the mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution, City Council of the City of Yuba City, adopting the revised 2021-2029 City of Yuba City General Plan Housing Element and associated amendment to the General Plan Environmental Impact Report.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay. I have a motion by the Vice Mayor and a second by Councilmember Harris. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. We'll move to agenda item 18. Senate Bill 9 and Accessory Dwelling Unit Ordinance Amendments. Again, Mr. Moody, you have the floor.
All right, so I'll try to work through this a little bit so it's understandable. And so, Senate Bill 9 and accessory dwelling units. So Senate Bill 9 is a relatively new bill that went into effect January 1 that allows urban lot splits. And then accessory dwelling unit ordinance amendments has to do with state law that's passed a couple of years back, allowing accessory dwelling units and different standards from our zoning code. And so the state law is in place, so technically they could come in now and we would follow state law, but this is the process tonight is really the first part of a two-part process to introduce the ordinance, to make the amendments to the municipal code so then we line up with the state. So purpose, as we mentioned briefly, update the municipal code to establish regulations for the urban lot splits and 2-unit developments in accordance with Senate Bill 9 and accessory dwelling units. Senate Bill 9 became effective January 1st, 2022. It requires the approval up to 2 primary dwelling units per parcel in single-family residential zones. State law also requires cities to allow development of accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and junior ADUs that do not conflict with state law and cities' regulations that need to be updated. So Senate Bill 9 has 2 primary effects. It requires cities to permit up to 2 primary residences on each parcel in R1 zone where previously 1 primary residence was allowed. So it's a big deal. So if you have it zoned as R1, they could come in over the counter. It doesn't need to go to the planning commission. You don't need a tentative parcel map. You don't need a final map. You don't need to meet certain widths or depths of lot. It really comes down to, hey, if you have a lot that you think that works, there's requirements in there about that I'll work through, but it really allows that single family home parcel to be split over the counter if it can meet these screening requirements. It requires cities to permit owners of R1 lots to split their lots and create 2 separate smaller lots. And when combined with ADUs and junior ADUs, a parcel in the R1 zone can have up to 4 dwelling units. So if somebody has a unique parcel, it could get interesting. I don't know how much I really see this happening. To preference this, the older county, maybe developed lots that are larger in size, that have a little bit more area. But there is some flexibility. So I'm curious what comes through. Each one's going to be a little bit different. But in general, the requirement is it has to be at least 40%. So you're going to get these lot splits somewhere between the 40 to 50% range that are going to get split. And then when they split, they could put a new home in the back, and it has different setback requirements. So you don't get caught up with the rear yard setback. All of a sudden, you could get 4 foot, 4 foot, and different heights that would not typically be allowed. And so then when you get into the weeds on that, then technically you could have a new ADU with our ADU law because it's an independent parcel. So you could then put an ADU on each lot. And then also you could get into where you start playing the game where you could do junior ADUs. And so theoretically, I don't know how this would work for, new city lots are pretty tight now for R1 zoning based on just the cost to develop those. They're really, you don't see a lot of big backyards anymore. So I could see the ADU thing happening more often. But if you have, more of an estate parcel, half acre to 1 acre, you could see something like this playing out. Because what the thing here is really interesting is it just has to have access to the front. And nobody's defined what that means. It's not a minimum 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, or a parking spot. It's access. And so if they show a 3 foot easement, walking through the side gate, that technically qualifies. So I'm curious what comes through. But it's state law. It's in place right now. And so there's definitely some review and strategy with each one of these. And with this municipal code update, we have some thresholds that we're putting in there that the city has the option as far as setting like the 1,200 square foot limit. You can set different limits on those, the size of the ADUs, and some different thresholds. So accessory dwelling unit, junior accessory dwelling. So that was the SB 9 is all about the lot split, the urban lot split, the process. What you'll see is that we're going to come through and recommend a zoning clearance fee, kind of an urban, so a ministerial fee, because it's not a typical parcel map process now. So with the adoption at a future council meeting, it will bring a fee associated with that for processing it over the counter. And it should be streamlined, and so trying to keep it reasonable. And so now we move on to the ADU component of the update. And so really, this is then where we're again, meeting state law. And then there's a little bit of wiggle room in there where the city can make a few comments, regarding like the maximum size of when we consider it not an ADU anymore and a secondary home. And then we've set that at 1,200 square feet. So junior ADUs must include living facilities for one or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, including an efficient kitchen as defined in the code. Junior ADUs and ADUs must have their own separate entrances. In general, 1 parking space is required for each ADU. However, there are many significant exceptions to this requirement. The city cannot require parking spaces. So that's kind of a big deal, is that you got these neighborhoods that are already tight at R1, and but basically by law, they don't necessarily need a parking space. And so they have to have a separate entrance. They have their own separate, kind of a separate apartment as far as independent living with a bathroom and a kitchen. But and many times, if it's close to a bus stop, if depending on the configuration, a parking space is not necessarily required. ADUs and junior ADUs cannot be used for short-term rentals. They need to be less. They can't have anybody staying in and out like a Airbnb. The property owner must reside in a single-family residence that includes the junior accessory dwelling unit. The owner may reside in either the junior accessory dwelling unit or the remaining portion of the structure. And so with the ordinance modification, city staff has performed a preliminary environmental assessment, and the proposed ordinance does not require any environmental review under CEQA. And so with that, with it complying with state law, we're recommending you conduct the public hearing and introduce an ordinance to update the Yuba City Municipal Code to establish regulations for the urban lot splits and 2-unit developments in accordance with Senate Bill 9 and adopt amendments to regulations of accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units and waive the first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Is there any questions from the council? Yes, sir.
Owner occupied. It seemed like there was a paragraph there that talked about for the junior accessory dwelling units. Does the owner have to, for the full accessory dwelling unit, does the owner have to reside in the main or the pre-existing residence?
I don't know if I can look the code up. Shannon, I'm pretty sure
You
that
can
is a
get back.
stipulation. I don't know if we ever actually have an enforcement mechanism to prove that, but that is the way the code reads.
Yeah, and that is the challenge, is even though you have to be either in the junior or the main one and owner occupied in one of those two, there's really no enforcement mechanism under state law, which makes it difficult for us to actually apply that.
Okay. The second, there's 2 other questions, and I see Chief Alexander on the phone, so we're not on the phone, but on the screen maybe. But the first one's probably for you, Mr. Moody, on the setback. So they've eliminated, I mean, these things can be right up against the property line?
Yeah. So, I mean, literally 4 feet. So 4 feet. And so, and it gets tricky, right? And so each one, there's really is a strategy on these ADUs if somebody really wants to do one. But theoretically, if you want a separate ADU, a standalone, new building, 4 foot off the property line, 16 foot tall. And then there's even some other caveats in there. That
Vaulted ceilings in these things?
the top of it has to be 16 feet if it's that close to the fence. However, and then there's a caveat that if it's an older building, so if you go into and I'm trying to kind of plan it for our downtown area, some of these areas that are built in the 50s where they have these accessory buildings, that were built on the property line. We have a stipulation in there that says pre-1990 or 91 that they could then retro that building if it could meet standards. And so if somebody comes in and says, hey, I got this existing building, it's been here since before 1990, I want to utilize it, there's an option for them to utilize that and convert it to an ADA, but they need to bring it up to code. And so there's definitely it's not just throwing drywall up. They need to make sure it doesn't blow over and have, some real requirements on what that means.
Is there a separate section within the building code that addresses the construction features of these ADUs, or is this a tough shed with some?
No, it falls, so they will need, and that's part of the difficulty is that it will fall under the current building standards. And so that's where some of the folks that come in that just say, hey, I want to, this non-permitted lean-to, and they want to turn it into something. No, let's talk. This is what you need, structural calcs, insulation, building code standards, and we'll work through that, but it's a current building code standard.
And this is the segue that maybe the chief might have to answer. I know that in new building construction nowadays, there's required for fire sprinklers. Do these require these at all?
I do not have that question readily answered. I know that they need to follow current code. And so I could get a hold of the chief building official, but it would have to be exempt based on the size, if not. But they do need to follow current code.
Could you make that requirement? Could we institute something more restrictive?
If I could jump in here through the mayor, we were actually, our team has been discussing these sorts of options. The bottom line is we don't know.
Okay.
And we have discussed the requirements for sprinklering either in the kitchen or throughout the entire residence. The challenge we have is if we're not requiring it of other units of similar density, we need to make sure that we apply the rule with regards to sprinkling equally. Currently, under the building code, you generally don't have to sprinkler these residential buildings. Now, our concern is, from a safety perspective, and I think this is what you're putting your finger on, Councilmember Boomgarden, is you can now have up to 4 times the density on a single-family residential lot with 4-foot setbacks for our firefighters to be getting through there. additional lot coverage with regards to the floor area ratio. There's not much open space out there, and we don't have sprinklering. So our initial thought is, as we explore this, and this is still a brave new world, that we provide as much local authority that we can in this particular ordinance. And then as we work through additional steps, that we come back, or we may come back to the city council with recommendations for sprinklering or potential driveway approaches or other things that we've been addressing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
You can definitely follow up with that information before it comes back for the ordinance.
I know when we instituted the sprinkler ordinance for residences here in Yuba City way back when we had to make certain findings, but we were able to do so. And we were able to be more restrictive. I didn't know if this current restrictions or whatever prohibit us from being more restrictive.
It doesn't expressly prohibit us, but given the intent of the law, it makes certain things difficult. And we would have to make findings with regards to unique topographical, I think I said that correctly, it's getting late, climatic and unusual conditions that we have within the region. And frankly, I think that we could probably make those findings, but we would have to do it as part of our building code update, make sure that we integrate the two ordinances together. And at least in the interim, if the council is inclined to introduce this ordinance tonight, it gives you the first step of tools in the toolbox in order to address these issues.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, we will move to open the public hearing. So the public hearing on Senate Bill 9 and accessory dwelling unit ordinance amendments is now open. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the council on this issue? Please provide your statement via public comment. State your name, address for the record. Do we have any public comment? Please come to the podium, give us your name, address, and your comments, please.
I'm Virginia Smith of 1979. Oh, sorry. Virginia Smith of 1979 Elmer Avenue, Yuba City. And I was just wondering, so you have one of these ADU buildings, can later on somebody sell that and then it end up being two houses, or will it just have to go together as one cell?
An ADU by itself is on the same parcel. And so it would be, typically that's, unless it was a creative sale, typically that all sells together. But with the SB 9, the urban lot splits, it would allow you to create an independent parcel that you could then sell independently. It would have its own title and ownership and could be financed separately. And so between the both of them, somebody could do the lot split, then build the second residence or ADU on that independent parcel.
What if somebody had it already built one? Will they allow them to split that and sell them separately?
Yes, if it meets the criteria.
Okay.
Any other
I
questions?
just note, because I know Mike, Patricia, they live right on the border in the county. And there's been a little bit of talk when I've been talking with the county on how they're going to handle it. And different agencies have taken different approaches. And so with Sutter County, most of theirs is agriculture. It's not necessarily single family residential. And so they have a state residential or ag, different holdings. And so my understanding for Sutter County, and definitely reach out to them, is that they are processing this through policy to follow the state law. And so we're taking an approach, we're actually amending the municipal code. We're putting in the criteria to be specific on how we have it. Where Sutter County, I believe, they're creating a policy kind of brochure and saying, hey, we're following these policy procedures, because there's not a lot of applicable properties. But please reach out to Sutter County Planning, and they can walk you through any of that.
All right. Any other public comment? Anything online?
We do have a public comment online from Heather Essman. She says to Mr. Moody that she needs help with her junior ADU.
Again, I would more than welcome to set up some time to meet with her.
Okay. Any other comments online?
No additional comments.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The one time you don't ask, I got you. Sorry.
Speak earlier, so you got me.
Ben, we bring up an interesting point here. anybody with an ADU, would be able to split their parcel off? Because we talk about access. If you just have a gate along the side of the main residence to get to an ADU, I mean, it would make sense to, I can't just sell my backyard to somebody.
This
know what I
is
mean? So
basically
there's gotta be some
saying
other
you
requirement.
can.
Even without access.
You're going to have, I haven't seen how people have done it, but it's just access. So typically where I see that is on a map where they call out some sort of access easement. And so I'm not quite sure how creative people will get, you would think that they'd want a parking spot and a clear way to the back property, but theoretically somebody could, call out an access easement. So it's the other person's property. You have access to walk across it, to go through the back gate and along the house, and then your property would start on the back.
All right.
So they're definitely creative, and I could see where there's a little, depending on the parcel, depending on each house layout and kind of how people want to, there's going to be a little bit of strategy on how to work through it.
It's still kind of new, then we don't really have solid answers on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, okay, how big's your parcel? Where's that 40% threshold for the split? And then where do you want to put the house, and how does that set back? And then how are you going to get utilities back to it? Yeah. Where okay, kind of the Pandora's box starts opening up.
All right, thank you.
Through the mayor, you made me think of a question. This is happening throughout the state.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to get that clear. Thanks.
All right. Any other comments? Okay. No more online?
No further comment.
All right. With that, and hearing no further comments, we will close the public hearing and bring this matter back to the council for action.
Okay, I move to introduce an ordinance to update the Yuba City Municipal to establish regulation for urban lot splits and 2-unit development in accordance with the Senate Bill 9, and adopt amendments to regulation of accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units by the title only, and waive the first reading.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second by Councilmember Baumgarten. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. That will bring us to the future agenda items. Is there any, this is an opportunity for us to discuss with the city manager about things that came up tonight that you'd like to have brought back at a later date. Is there any items that we'd like to have brought back at a later date by the council? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to move on to reports and communications, and we will start with the city manager's report. Ms. Langley, you have the floor.
So good evening. March 29th, we do have a homeless workshop scheduled here with City Council at 6 p.m. And so staff's prepping for that workshop. We're also into budget time. And so departments are getting together, not only their capital improvement program budget requests, but also their operating budget requests. The build funds, so there's a lot of webinars taking place related to the federal funding that's coming out. I have to say it's very confusing. Because as the funds are coming out, the agencies that are responsible for implementing them aren't exactly sure yet as to how to implement them or what some of the requirements are going to be. So we continue to participate, and we're, like many other agencies, just trying to figure out how to set us up so that we can successfully apply for funding. Staff is working on a council districting FAQ utility bill insert per council request. I will note it wasn't until I was reading that it hit me that half of Yuba City will not be voting in a council election this year. The southern half of Yuba City residents will not be voting in the election for a council member. And so it's going to be such a unique time as we shift to districts. And then also the ballots will look different because depending upon where you live and which district you live, you will only be voting on the council member for your district. So we're in a much different time than what we've been for past elections. And then just one final comment is the police department had an awards ceremony last Thursday, and it was so great to see peers recognizing peers. And we got to see one of those awards tonight with Officer Koski getting the Police Officer of the Year. But it was a really great event, and so awesome to see the contributions and the recognition for everybody. And then quite monumental today, as the first day that unvaccinated employees did not have to wear a mask in the workplace. And so it kind of felt anticlimactic that we didn't have some type of party or something, but it was exciting to actually be able to see everybody's faces today. Yeah, so thank you.
I have a question. Because the election is downscaled, is the cost going to be the same?
It's actually going to be more because we're going to have, it's not just basically one ballot where everybody's voting on their top 3 candidates. It's going to have to be a different ballot for each district.
Well, you have to explain that one to me. It seems like less ballots means less cost, but okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Ms. Langley? All right, then we will bring it to council reports. Councilmember Espindola.
Thank you, Mayor. So of the multiple committee assignments, with the Regional Water Authority, I participated in the executive committee meeting. And one thing that we're doing right now, as I think I mentioned before, is a review of the employee composition of how the salaries and benefits to clearly state of the employees of RWA. And they're they've completed an RFP. It's being released, and I'm going to assist in the selection of who will review the RFP and make recommendations to the executive committee, then which will go to the board on to see if the staff at RWA are being paid to par for their work. The other thing that we're always topic of mind for all of us is the fiscal year budget for 2023. RWA is on budget, and they've actually had some cost savings this year, which is we're not getting a refund, so don't ask me that. With the city of Yuba City, as all of you on the council are aware, we are going to have a tour on March 11th. Prior to that, we've met on the 22nd with Darren Fulamus. I can't pronounce his last name, I'm sorry. Deputy Director of Drinking Water. Diana and Ben and I met with him. Mainly, I was just joining the meeting. The real details of the conversation were among them. And trying to figure out funding for our drinking water through the city. And also then we met on the 28th which was yesterday. We met with a division of financial assistance. We met with Michael Downey, Robert Turney, I think, and Elizabeth Brown, and we had Ben, Catherine Willis, Kevin Bradford. I think between both of all those meetings, it's been very productive. We have now our staff and team connected to State Water Resource employees and high-level staffing to help us hopefully identify some potential funding in various ways. And also it brings some information that they're not always clear on some of these new funds that are being brought in through the federal level, but we're looking at grants and possibly state revolving fund. But we're focusing on our tour that's being finalized. It's looking really promising. We're gonna focus on the drinking water, wastewater, disadvantaged communities, agricultural economy, with the water resiliency tied into it all. And Diana just mentioned the department awards. Chief, you and your team did a fantastic job on the awards. It was extremely impressive, and it was such a family gathering feel to it. And hearing the stories really warmed my heart and even opened my eyes to more of the servant work that our police officers and our police department do. So thank you so much for including us in that celebration. And to see Troy receive the year award is just, he's such a great guy. He's amazing. I've had an opportunity to go out with him a couple times, and never a dull moment. I always feel safe with him, but I learned so much in hearing and watching him. Another thing that we've all embraced as a council, which is another close item to my heart, is that March is Women's History Month, which is today is March. We're celebrating women in the city for our second year, and our council together, we're all celebrating our city teams and the women that work for our city and community members. So thank you so much for Sierra's work on that, because Sierra has put so much time and effort. So Sierra, you've done a fantastic job with that. So thank you so much, and appreciate all your help and support. Lastly, this morning, I participated on Aqua's Federal Affairs Committee, and we reviewed the proposed Federal Affairs Committee has they do a priority list for the committee on the for the 117 Congress priorities. So there's a team in DC that works and advocates on the priorities that Aqua identifies, and there's a on the West Coast team as well. So once those priorities are summarized, then I will get those out and share with all of you. And if there's any questions on the topics or information, because I know that each of you have your own independent work that you do in other committees and individually partners with other elected folks. So the more that we can share the resources of how these things are being done together, I think we can have an opportunity for our city to have a larger opportunities for infrastructure funding, which we've done so well, as we can see with the improvements of our roads. We also need to improve our water and wastewater infrastructure systems, our piping. The list goes on and on. But I feel very optimistic and encouraged that with these meetings through the State Water Board, that the ASR that we're looking for, that $6 million may be coming here soon, hopefully. And then with the diffusers, there could be a potential from 35 to 40 million. And we're on track to begin those conversations for those larger bill projects. And so this is work that we've all contributed in one way or another. So thank you so much.
Ready, thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's start off with the community events. Went into a few of the ribbon cutting on the Pluma Street interiors for the extension of Evans Furniture. It's a very, you don't even have a chance to go in there. It's a very beautiful store. They've done a really good job stocking it and all displays. So hopefully they do have very much success out there. It's a really nice addition to Pluma Street. I had the opportunity to attend the Chamber of Commerce Gala out at Hard Rock Casino. It was very well attended, as it usually is, and congratulations, of course, to all the community members and businesses who were recognized that evening. The highlight, of course, of community things was the PD Awards, and I can tell you congratulations to everybody on the PD who won awards, of course, including Officer Koski, who was here tonight. But so many other people were recognized peer-to-peer, and Chief, I know you don't like this kind of thing, but I tell you what, to be the head of that organization, and to even just to be the MC, I know it doesn't come naturally to you, but you did it. You stepped up for the benefit of your department, and like Grace said, it was a very, very family friendly and very well attended by people of all ages, and it was very I don't want to be corny, but like wholesome and just really pleasant to be there. Really pleasant atmosphere, all positive. Everybody was there for each other and legitimately happy for each other. And you're the head of that. And I thank you for that. It was very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yuba Center Arts. We had our meeting. The highlight of that, you may or may not have known, was the attack on the COVID policy that staff established over there. To the point where it was in Yuba County, the resolution to designate Yuba Center Arts as their representative to the California Arts Commission was put in jeopardy. Yuba County was forced to vote on whether they're going to designate Yuba Center Arts. as that, which of course if they did not, it would put $200,000+ in jeopardy to the point where we may have had to relocate over to Sutter County only. And that was based solely on the attacks of the differing philosophies on the COVID policy that staff put in place. However, I found out today they had a special meeting and there was a majority of council voted to continue a relationship with Yuba City Arts as their designee to the California Arts Commission. SACOG, the main thing was the discussing the policy framework, which I've talked about before, the triple bottom line moving forward, guiding all policies of the three premises of equity, economy, and environment. Those three things. Also, we approved the charge officially as a board of the Race, Equity, Inclusion Group, the official what their mission is, and also we held a workshop. One of the things of COVID is you can have people from across the country participate in your meetings from Zoom, and so we had a gentleman from Washington, D.C., also the head of transportation folks in Sacramento, provide us an overview and a workshop of opportunities for state and federal transportation funding. And as Diana expressed, there's a multitude of different grant opportunities out there by different agencies, all with different acronyms, all with different missions, all with different requirements, all with different amounts that are available through various sources. And it's unprecedented the amount of money that's available out there and the opportunities there. It was like a feeding frenzy. So everybody's trying to figure out and position themselves what projects they're going to have ready to go, who they're going to submit it to, and how and when. But it's really opportunities are ripe for additional funding out there. Of course, I immediately came back and found out, of course, that staff is on top of all that and monitoring it and got their finger on the pulse, and so we don't miss any opportunities, as she stated. And that is it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Boomgarden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regional Housing Authority, our meeting after our last council meeting was postponed, but we do have one tomorrow. They do have some pretty good projects in the pipeline. I'll be able to report back on those at our next meeting. Did attend the Chamber Gala, and like has been mentioned, congratulations to all those who were awarded. It was really well attended. A special thanks to Marnie Sanders, who tried to maintain control in a very full auditorium where people wanted to talk because they hadn't been out. And so she did a great job, and it's good to have that event back in the queue. LAFCO, we were scheduled to receive a municipal services review on fire. That was postponed. The only thing I would say about this at this particular point in time, I think this council has heard me say it before, the fire services in Sutter County are stretched, and a lot of that has to do with the symbiotic or the sharing of resources that occurs between the agencies in this county. It's no different for law enforcement. I think everybody around here knows, none of the entities are big enough to staff themselves for that one or two or whatever, how many incidents. So there really is a relationship, and frankly, I'm going to continue to be concerned about the status, especially of our neighbors in Sutter County in regards to their ability to provide assistance to the city of Yuba City. They've got a long-standing history of doing so and doing so professionally. However, it's difficult when you're a volunteer organization, or at least a partially staffed volunteer organization, when volunteerism is under very much a challenge. So this is something that we're going to need to pay attention to, and you're going to hear more from myself, Chief Alexander, as this continues to unfold. The PD Awards, can't really say any more except it really was a fantastic event. You know what? Much respect for law enforcement. It was great to be able to recognize the heroes and those doing the hard work day to day out in the field taking care of the citizens of Yuba City, and they were even awarded for taking care of people outside the city of Yuba City at this award ceremony. So that was good, and it was very well attended. Wrap up with a couple things. One is, several months ago, this council raised the concern about a cyber attack with city staff And of course, the world's events right now, I think it's pretty much top of mind right now that that could be in play. I think our staff has done a really good job so far of heightening the awareness and making us, less vulnerable to cyber. I don't think you can ever get away from that, but just for the citizens to know that this was something that the city realized here several months ago and has made, great steps in trying to bolster our protection. Last thing is, saw a bulletin from George Barlow today. We get a Cold Stone Creamery on the night that we're talking about the blue zones. I think that's awesome. So anyway, I like Cold Stone Creamery. Anyway, as always, pleasure to serve the city of Yuba City, and I'm gonna quit talking.
All right. Well, thank you. And that gives a whole new meaning to the blue, is an ice cream. So, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate what the city manager said today. It was nice being at City Hall and seeing happy faces instead of the mask, so I agree with that. Regional Transit, I was asked to chair the meeting this time around. Director Hudson was unable to attend. We talked about and authorized pursuing several grants during the meeting. Something else that came up during this time was the need to authorize the creation of an ad hoc committee that was the purpose is to provide policy input for the next 5 to 10 years for the organization. But unfortunately, it turns out that if you are an accountant or a farmer, you were excused from being on said ad hoc. So I'm on another ad hoc committee by process of elimination. So I got that going for me. But other than that, it was a very productive meeting. I look forward to being part of that ad hoc going forward. Sabufka, we had speaking of ad hocs, Sabufka, we had an ad hoc to discuss the concerns we have in South Sutter County, showing up our vulnerabilities in our defense lines with our levees down there. There's about a 5.2 mile levee that needs to be addressed. They're looking at 5.9 million, but that is strictly for the design, permits, and engineering part of it. So this is what the ad hoc is to figure out where that funding is coming from. They are, Sabufka has a meeting with DWR tomorrow to find out what DWR's contribution portion will be moving forward. So I'm anxious to see what that will look like. We did set a cap at $2 million for a contribution during the ad hoc meeting. The other thing is we are sending a letter of support, hopefully getting support from Senator Nielsen and Assemblyman Gallagher. We're hoping for an additional $10 million to do a phase 2 sediment removal on the Feather River, just below the mouth of the Yuba. If you look towards Marysville from the boat ramp, there's extensive debris along that line, and so we're hoping to get additional $10 million. It's at the point where they may be able to just drive heavy equipment out there to remove it. There's so much out there, so that'll be interesting to follow. The mayor and I took part of the senior commission interviews, and I think we've got some great people on board with that organization. Lastly, in the mayor's place and with Councilmember Harris, I did attend the ribbon cutting on Plymouth Street for the Plymouth Street interiors, and I do recommend everybody to try that place. It's a great addition to our downtown community. And that's it.
Alrighty, thank you. I will start off my reports tonight by thanking my colleagues and our city manager, Ms. Langley. As you met, you kind of get out of these extra ad hocs if you have certain professions, and being an EA and an RIA, I'm a little busy right now. So I appreciate the coverage that I'm getting. Ms. Langley covered a meeting for me, I think it was Thursday. I haven't had a day off in over a month, so days kind of run together, but I think it was Thursday, and then the ribbon cuttings and stuff. So thank you to my colleagues for all the work, and that's the great part about being on a team. We all pitch in and help each other. So things that are top of mind, talked about transit. All that went on there is all about grants and grant funding. We're trying to raise $40 million to build a new state-of-the-art transit facility. 8 of that is coming in with the project that we partnered with for Richland Housing. There was $8 million of that. So, hey, we only got $32 million to go. And I believe at that we authorized, I think it was 4 or 6 different grants, all the resolutions to go. So it's like everything else is apply often and frequently and as many places we go. So we're looking to try to get the funds for that. RWMA was canceled. We will have meetings coming up there, but we are in the process of hiring the new executive director for the RWMA. We are anticipating and trying to look at scheduling interviews with the final candidates within the next couple of weeks. So there will be information coming forth on the RWMA, and then letting you know what the transition plan will look like as Mr. Martin and his team will transition out, but we'll have a new executive director coming on. The EDC, Ms. Langley, thank you for attending the executive committee on that. We have our regular meeting coming up Friday morning, so we'll be picking up that and moving forward, and I'll have more to report out of that one. GSEC has meetings upcoming as well. We have a meeting next week in Sacramento, and then we have a retreat coming up as well. GSEC is very vital as SACOG, keeping us in the regional forefront. The big news from GSEC right now, as you've seen it in the news, was Aggie Square. They were instrumental in that, along with a lot of other things in bringing that to Sacramento. Got their ear, trying to bring them this way as much as possible, and let them know that we need development up here as well with some of these projects that'll bring good paying jobs to our community. So that we definitely have. We have the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, or the IRC. So we've got that coming up before the next meeting. Things that we're going to be talking about, Councilmember Baumgarten, absolutely. The concerns we have with fire safety in our region, that's going to be one of the things that's going to be top of mind, because whatever happens at the county impacts us at the city. And so I look forward to having further conversations with you and Chief Alexander before the IRC, so that we can make sure we get those addressed. Other issues is also going to concern the homeless workshop that we have on the 29th coming up. The way, again, that we've envisioned structuring this is a series of 3 meetings. The first meeting is us as a city to figure out, get to the real story of how we're dealing with it. I encourage the county to do their own and figure out how they're handling things at their level. Second meeting would bring us together, and I see it being mutually beneficial if we've had those meetings and we can come together and have a clear understanding of where we are as individual municipalities. And then the last meeting, we'll start bringing in all the partners. So the whole idea with that is to try to come up with some ideas that are long-standing, not flashes in the pan, not, ooh, we're going to do this today and it's going to work and forget about it. Something that can turn the situation around long-term here. So that's hopefully what we're going to be able to come out of that. And as Councilmember Harris says, no more counts. We know there's a lot of them. We need real solutions and options. So that's hopefully what we're going to come out with these. The gala was a huge success. Thank you to Marnie and the Chamber for putting that on. Chief Baker, thank you for being gracious. You called me and about the awards. I wished I could have been there, but you were gracious enough. I offered to clear my calendar and go, because I highly respect you and your team. Pardon the French, you guys do a hell of a job in an environment that's not always inviting for you guys. And you guys have my utmost respect, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for being gracious enough to allow me to just be here tonight. And then with those, I will have more to report out at the next meeting. I want to close tonight in a couple of things. The first one is, as everyone knows, and Councilmember Boomgard talked about, cyber attacks and being on the alert and stuff like this. World's a mess right now. And you don't even have to go all the way across to Ukraine to find out just how much of a mess the world is. We've been through hell the last 2 years. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of unknowns. I just have a simple request tonight, and that is, without respect of what your beliefs are or not, I just ask the people of Yuba City, take a few minutes and extend your thoughts and prayers to whoever that may be, not just for the Ukrainians, but our world as a whole. We need to come together in unity. We need to come together in peace. And hopefully cool heads will prevail and we'll all get through everything that's before us. The last thing, this might be a little tough. As we've been through a lot the last 2 years, last week, 2 people I personally know left suddenly and unexpected from this world. The one that I want to discuss tonight is someone that's been a pillar of this community. You probably go back to the days 20 years ago, you could find him at Carl's Jr. in Marysville, smiling face, running that shop. And then his wife and he had a dream, and they took over Trumbull's there on Pluma Street and turned it into Linda's. Last Monday, we lost Tim McKenna. Tim and Linda have been pillars of this community and a lot for this community. And with that, I would just like to close in honor of Tim McKenna tonight, because a lot of people knew him, loved him, and we send out our thoughts and our prayers and best wishes to Linda and the entire family. So with that, we will close in honor of Mr. Tim McKenna tonight.